A very good evening to all. It is indeed a privilege to be here with you today at this special gathering and of course exclusive interview with a very special guest who has traveled all the way from Aotearoa, and that is New Zealand. By now you might know who my guest on our show is today. He is none other than Right Honourable Winston Peters, Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister of New Zealand. A very good day to you, sir, and welcome to our show.
Well, thank you for having me on your show.
Definitely. So first things first, you've been in Sri Lanka for about 4 days now. I believe this is the longest overseas visit that you have undertaken. How are you finding the Sri Lankan experience so far?
Well, for the New Zealand Foreign Affairs and Trade team on this delegation, it's been a serious privilege. It's been an eye-opener to be welcomed in the way we have been. We've had long, over the years, decades ago, understandings and memories and thoughts of Sri Lanka, mainly because of the standard of your cricket, but also those of us who have been interested in politics, a long understanding of your political system and background as well. So it's been tremendous to have the chance to pick up where things were started so long ago, and people forget how many decades ago that our relationship began. In fact, it began in the 1860s, that far back.
Yes.
Now, I can assure you I wasn't there at the time, but it's a relationship that we know and we believe is shared by Sri Lanka, where we can do a whole lot more to benefit both of our countries, to uplift our economies, and also to ensure that the interests and the beliefs and the principles of small states, and we're island nations, that those things matter in the world. And so if we join up with countries who are like-minded as we are, with this long relationship, and expand upon that, and get others to join us in this very, very difficult environment, then it can only be to the interests of economic advancement and stability going forward into the future.
I see. So, Mr. Peters, you are the first foreign dignitary from outside South Asia to visit Sri Lanka since our latest government took office last year.
Well, we don't call ourselves dignitaries. We're like Sri Lankans. We're very humble. We call ourselves servants of the people.
Servants of the people. Very well said. But why have you chosen Sri Lanka for your visit in this very critical juncture for especially the Asia-Pacific region, so to speak?
Well, personally, because I had good advisors as a foreign minister. In the heat of COVID in 2020, we made the decision to open up an embassy here. We believed we had to start doing more work,
yes,
present New Zealand businesses, New Zealand's educational institutions, our capacity in agriculture and things like sustainability. There were a lot of things that we believed we could share, and of course Sri Lanka reciprocated with the opening of your embassy this year in New Zealand. And so we're here to put things on a more active, more complicated, more intricate level in a range of areas where in our discussions it's been clear that there's a shared interest on both sides.
I see. So this interview is being hosted as you wrap up your visit to Sri Lanka, and in that time you have met the top brass of our administration, from our president to the Prime Minister and several other top officials in Sri Lanka. What is your impression of Sri Lanka, its people, its places, and even perhaps the possibilities that Sri Lanka has to offer?
Well, it's very clear to us from all the conversations we've had from the President, Prime Minister, dare I say it, people on the street. We don't call them ordinary people, citizens of Sri Lanka, sporting people, even members of the opposition parties, that you're coming out of a very difficult economic period, that there is a very nationwide joined up consciousness of the need to get out of where you were with the IMF by the end of 2028 and to get things on a sounder footing. And in a funny way, we're all in that situation, to a lesser or stronger extent, because of COVID and the cost it was to the international economy, and dare I say it, our own, and how fast we could get out of there and get things back onto an even level. But the marvellous thing about it is on so many areas of our conversation, there is a genuine interest, not just one that is being polite or diplomatic, but a genuine interest of how we can do more together.
I see. So how would you characterize the tone and the substance of your diplomatic, I believe your bilateral conversations you've had with government officials? How has that panned out? And what sort of areas of assistance can we expect the two countries to work on?
Well, you know, we've got University of Colombo and University of Otago, for example, beginning an agreement. We've got all the putative or embryonic discussions underway to take things further, hopefully much more quickly. We're talking about tourism and facilitating greater interest in your country. It's got all the beauty in it that sadly we didn't have the time to see, but everybody that's been here any length of time is full of their praises for it, and also the people. So there's a lot where we can ensure that New Zealanders are more aware of this potential place when it comes to tourism, and perhaps give Sri Lanka a thought before they go somewhere else. And likewise, the other way as well, we expect to see a number of people coming over to New Zealand, but also we can see opportunities, whether it's politics, whether it's institutional construction of government. An old democracy like ours has got something to offer, as difficult as it is, and we're not saying that we're a prototype or a model, but we haven't survived as one of 9 countries with an unbroken line of democracy since 1854. Just 9 countries have done that purely by accident. So we hope to be able to share our experience, because no matter what you think of systems of government, democracy is the best. Freedom of speech, the rule of law, the right to worship the God of your choice without hinder or impediment. These are some values that we share. And I think as we go forward, more countries are going to understand that all those principles are worth making a stand for.
I see. So let's dissect these pillars a bit more. Mr. Peters, let's talk about education. Education lays the groundwork for progress and innovation in any country. And when it comes to bilateral relations between Sri Lanka and New Zealand, where do you see opportunities for collaboration? Maybe in the realm of academic exchanges, in scholarships, or even collaborations in research. Where do you believe is the best opportunity for our two countries?
Well, it's 1951, and a foreign minister called Doige came here, representing New Zealand, to sign up to a project called the Colombo Plan. And I've met people who were the beneficiaries of that, working here, who studied in New Zealand. There's been a lapse in between at some part in recent years, and we're saying we could do far more with respect to students coming to our country, studying at our tech institutions, particularly the ones that can advantage your economic and business and resource model here, going into the future. So it's 1951, it's a long time back, but we, at that time, were a population that was only half the size we are now. We think we need to ensure greater connectivity, greater meaningful relationships. There are 23,000 plus, some say thousands more, depending who you talk to, Sri Lankans who live in New Zealand.
I see.
That's a significant diaspora.
Yes.
And they've been good, hard-working citizens. And that's the real point. So that's a value add to our economy. So we're looking at every area where we can get exchanges, including political exchanges. Come over and share some of the problems we've got, and you'll see the world's not so different. But we do have one conscious understanding after these 4 days, and that is you're coming out of a terrible challenge in terms of the economy, and you have only one purpose, and that is to succeed. There's no second place now.
I see. So when you talk about tourism, New Zealand is celebrated globally for its natural beauty, much like Sri Lanka. What sort of avenues can we explore to collaborate in promoting sustainable tourism, and also all the niches in tourism that have come about over the past few years, where we can promote New Zealand here in Sri Lanka, and we can also ensure that the people of New Zealand put Sri Lanka in their itinerary for their next visit or their next vacation?
That is an interesting question, because often in particularly a political environment, everybody's got great ideas, and great thoughts, visions of how things might be done. But in the end, as everybody knows in business, somebody has to do the simple mechanics, put all the bolts all together, make it stack up, and make it start to work. We can see a time where, 50,000 New Zealanders could be coming here. Would be a big start. And both ways would be also of enormous advantage. But if you ask me about the precise mechanics, well, those are the details that anybody that runs any business or any sporting team knows comes down to getting the 101 stuff right, all the way through.
Yes. Okay, understood. When you talk about trade, Sri Lanka's current government is quite keen on diversifying trade relations, especially with countries like New Zealand. What opportunities do you see for us to expand our trade links between the two countries and to increase business connections, enhance business connections between our two nations where trade and commerce flows much smoothly than before?
Well, the Sri Lankan Business Association in New Zealand is rather new, but we have to ensure that we join up people here with that association on the ground in New Zealand and see what thoughts and ideas they've got. And in the other areas, there's so much that we can do. Take agriculture. We're going to need, going forward into the next 30 years, probably 30% or more food production. We believe we can help because of our much higher productivity when it comes to farming. Now, it so happens your president comes from a farm, a dairy farm, a bit like me. And that means milking cows in the morning and milking them at night and trying to fill out the rest of your life. But it's very critical to the economy. And strange enough, the very structure that you've got here, dare I say, which is similar to India, was the structure that we used to have when we were so powerfully agricultural country back in the 50s and the 60s in New Zealand. Our point is, there are lessons you can learn from us. You can learn from some of our mistakes, by the way, as well, and not repeat them. And that's just one area. When it comes to tech, when it comes to young students learning tech in New Zealand, in areas that you might need, we are looking at, in our foreign policy reach, in particular expanding our scholarships and our young student engagements. That's part of our plan, as is the reason why we're here as well, is that in the last budget we had a sizable proportion of our budget set aside for South and Southeast Asia.
I see.
To do more here and as fast as possible. It's called trade. It's called exporting, as we are export dependent, as much as we can, everywhere we possibly can. And Sri Lanka, because of its political and historic similarity in some ways to New Zealand, seems like a good place to put a focus from my country.
I see. So, despite Sri Lanka going through a tumultuous period in the recent past, businesses and entrepreneurs continue to thrive and they continue to look for potential opportunities overseas. What can you offer in New Zealand to such businesses who are looking to expand their processes and their businesses, their operations to particularly countries like New Zealand?
Well, I just had a talk to a lady in our audience about that, about that possibility, and it needs more conversations like that. But it also means people have got to come and visit. Have got to come and look and see for themselves, and we are trying to facilitate that in a wide range of areas, including politically.
Right. So what sort
Bring
of
politicians over from Sri Lanka in specific areas, key areas which you are focusing on, get the best you've got of your political team and come over and have a look and see what we can do together. Just one thing, what is very clear to us is, coming out of the economic situation you're in, there seems, even in the brief time that I've been here and all the conversations I've had right across the spectrum, a desire to actually put aside some of the past to get things right in the future.
I see.
That's important.
Certainly. So how can the government facilitate this smooth flow of trade and sharing knowledges between the two countries when it comes to trade and exports? Because although we have seen there has been a certain intention to expand our export sector, there have been significant trade barriers. What sort of advice would you give the current administration in getting its affairs right when it comes to such matters?
You're very lucky you're talking to the right country. In 1984, unlike the rest of the world, we totally opened up our economy. Now, you might have thought that we made a rather neoliberal experiment and that the rest of the world would see the wisdom of free trade. Well, they didn't. But we're the one country that took down all the barriers and sought to take on the rest of the world without subsidies, compete on our own skills. In that sense, you will not walk into New Zealand and run into barriers.
Yes.
All the rest might, but we've got a record at how many years on now? 41 years on? Yeah, 41 years on exactly, of being the most free and open market in the world.
So how has New Zealand...
Everyone knows why the other people didn't take the lesson. Especially at this present time. I mean, we're all now facing this confrontation of, not really a tariff war, but highly embroiled
tensions.
Tariff tensions, yes. And what we have to do is hold our counsel, try and wait till the dust settles, and get the maximum out of it. Ensure that we do not lose hope, because in the end, even if it was to remain a serious tariff confrontation, enough countries can join together to ensure it less affects us.
We are engaged in a Newsfirst face-to-face special conversation with a visiting Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister of New Zealand, Winston Peters. He is on a 4-day state visit to Sri Lanka and is discussing all things New Zealand-Sri Lanka bilateral relations with us on the sidelines of his visit. Stay tuned to Face to Face on Newsfirst. We will be right back with more from this exclusive.
Far from the city noise, under a mango tree, children turn broken desks into a stage. They sing, they dance, they try. No bright lights, no big crowds, just a small school and big dreams. Change is coming. An open-air stage for the Kattaragama Primary School. Gamatha, for the people, by the people.
Welcome back. We are in conversation with Right Honourable Winston Peters, the Deputy Prime Minister of New Zealand, who is also the Foreign Minister of the country. We have been discussing all things bilateral ties, New Zealand and Sri Lanka. We have discussed education, we discussed trade and much more in the interim. Let's now continue the conversation with the Deputy Prime Minister. So when talking about all of the tensions geopolitically and talking on a broader lens, taking the Indo-Pacific region, we are seeing very important strategic and economic realignments happening over the past few years with certain emerging economies and so on. How does Wellington view all of this and all that's unfolding in the recent past?
Well, the government of New Zealand right here, right now, is totally focused on growth of the economy. Growth means not just little things like import substitution. It means for us, and it has since 1882 when our first consignment of frozen meat left New Zealand, it means that we are utterly dependent, highly dependent on trade and exports and added value, wealth creation, all based on a multiplicity of areas. I mean, if you were to ask which country fires where's New Zealand, which country is the third largest supplier of rockets into the outer space right now? You know what that country is? New Zealand. No one knows it. We've been hiding all some of our talents under a bushel, so to speak.
I see. Is that a strategic move?
No. Just that there's a saying, a kumara is a vegetable in New Zealand. Probably got similar people because of the tropics here. But this famous saying that goes back to the original settlers of New Zealand, the kumara never says how sweet it is. That's a handicap when you're trying to sell yourself offshore.
I see.
You got to get out and sell and sell and sell. Why? Because people, ordinary people, everyday lives, their food on the table, depends on your success. It's a mission you're on.
So talking about success and how New Zealand has developed leaps and bounds compared to Sri Lanka, despite Sri Lanka having as much potential, I would say, as a fellow Sri Lankan myself, there should be political will and also a desire from the populace to get a certain country from where it is to a higher standing. What advice or what remarks could you share with the people of Sri Lanka on how we can develop our own country, taking New Zealand as an example and going to where we are supposed to be and realizing our true potential?
Look, the worst thing to do is ask a diplomat or a foreign minister.
I'm putting you on the spot there,
or
sorry.
a foreign minister to talk about some other country's politics. But worldwide, what is the purpose of being in government? Well, you're a servant of the people. That's what your job is, not their master. And the second thing is, if you were to ask, what are the 4 things that unite people worldwide? It's that a safe, affordable accommodation or house, right? Second one is, hopefully not for you, but for your grandparent or your child or your relation, if you fall sick, access to a decent health system. And the third one is special, and I'm sure that Sri Lanka's future depends upon that. It's having educational escalators open for every person so that the talent of that person can be realised to the max, to over the time of their adulthood after training, they can contribute 45 or 50 years to the economy. And the last one is first world wages. Those 4 things unite people all over the world. And yet you see a multiplicity of political systems trying to deliver it in different ways. Some have been successful, some are not. But if you focus on that and realise that it's the mass out there that you're serving, then the prospects of you being successful, if it's shared across Parliament, are simply enormously promising.
So has that been the winning formula for New Zealand?
It was our winning formula. When, first of all, a party on the left did it, after it gave up land nationalisation, it realised it was too radical on the left. And they gave that up and they were enormously successful. And the other side looked and thought, now, there's parts of that which we're going to make our own, but we'll call it something different. We'll call it a property-owning democracy.
I see.
And so we had more housing available for people at affordable levels than probably any other population on earth. And then sadly, a whole lot of academics got into Parliament who had no practical experience, and things went a bit awry. But we're settling down now by getting back on course.
I see. So what is next for New Zealand? What does New Zealand have in store for the rest of the world when it comes to development, to managing all of these strategic realignments, the geopolitics of things? How does New Zealand play a role or plan to play a role in the larger picture?
Well, you'll ask that question of 120 members of Parliament in New Zealand, they'll give you different answers. But I would say to you that if you watch the next year, this will be make or break for New Zealand's rise and comeback as a leading world economy. When I say leading world economy, we used to be the first 2 or 3 in the world. A population that had built all the modern utilities of a country the size of the UK or Japan. That's universities, and high-class universities, hospitals, all sorts of facilities in a modern economy. But we did it with a population the size of Manchester. That was incredible. And in a prior time to that, we also, in the 1890s, made giant strides as a country. Or from the 70s, 80s and 90s, made giant strides in the 1800s. So we know we can do it again. And I can't answer your question. I can, but I don't want to answer the question. I'm going to say, watch New Zealand make or break itself in the next year. By that I mean, there's better yet to come in my view.
I see. So we live in the digital era, Minister, and many countries are moving from industrialized economies to the digital realm of things, to tech, to innovation, to AI and whatnot. Where does New Zealand fit in, and how can Sri Lanka maybe replicate some of the successes that New Zealand have achieved in that realm?
Well, since I've been here, I've seen enough rain to realise you've got the potential to grasp one area. When everybody talks about AI, I don't think they realise just how much power is going to be required, just how much technology is going to be required to take a massive high wattage from there to home domestic supply.
Yes.
And how 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, it's going to have to be consistent. So a country that's got power potential, and I'm not just talking about wind power or solar power, you need 24/7 power. Those countries who can do it affordable will be attractive. And it so happens that in parts of New Zealand we've got enormous potential to do better than many with our power resources.
I see.
We are, for example, way ahead of Australia in terms of self-sufficiency. Now, we can do far better than that, and we'll have to. But all of a sudden, what looked like something new, trying to get our heads around AI, looks like in the South Island of New Zealand a tremendous possibility if enough visionaries and politicians grasp it and put aside the politics and go with progress.
I see. So let's talk about the sporting aspect of things. We have started to see more of New Zealand on the sports field, especially when it comes to encounters between Sri Lanka and New Zealand in various sports, may it be cricket or rugby. And when it comes to cricket, New Zealand and Sri Lanka have locked horns on multiple occasions throughout the decades. And the New Zealand cricket team specifically has been lauded as a group of gentlemen, from the 2019 heartbreak at the World Cup final to how they play the game. The sportsmanship they uphold has been largely praised by the global sporting world and the world as a whole. So does that come from the New Zealand's ability to be humane and the citizenry themselves developing that patience? How does sports play a role in shaping a perfect human being?
Well, in 2019, it just wasn't cricket. It wasn't fair. Maybe we were too modest, but other countries would have been screaming from the rooftops. Yeah. We just took it on the chin, and sadly, we've never been able to duplicate what you did in 1996 to win the World Cup. Mind you, that series, you took your time to make the comeback, never panicked. It's a bit like that motto at the Ministry for Crab, keep calm and crab on. Well, you did it that time.
That's what they did.
And there's something for us to learn from. But, a lot of our experience for a lot of people in New Zealand has been the cricket experience. And of late now, there seems to be a serious interest in rugby. And that's wonderful. Because it will certainly grow in a certain level. The international competition in your part of the world will start to grow as well.
Yes.
So when we had Sir Graham Henry over here, the World Cup winning coach and leading announcers and others, there are others who will be keen to come.
Yes, certainly.
Especially if we told them how beautiful it is.
Certainly. So I want to touch on rugby as well. Despite Sri Lanka standing on the international stage, rugby is a sport that many Sri Lankans are passionate about, as you would have seen in the recent under 85 New Zealand team's tour. The stands were packed to the rafters in Kandy, in Nithawela, and also in Colombo. And that leads me to my next question, how sporting ties will help Sri Lanka and New Zealand deepen their bilateral relations. And well, I think I'm speaking on behalf of all the rugby fans here, if we might be able to see Borden Barrett in Sri Lanka sometime soon.
Yeah, very possible. I mean, I had a long chat to your women's cricket captain. Couldn't believe that she'd been playing for 15 years and captain for 12. But she's played in New Zealand, she's played in India. I mean, I was sharing with her the fact that she just arrived at the right time, because now there's money in it for women. So it'll take off.
Yes.
We'll have greater engagements, because when we go home we'll be sharing, and I'm sure Sir Graham Henry will be sharing that as well, that let's put more time into it here.
I see. So the chances of us seeing the All Blacks in Sri Lanka are not too far?
No, I wouldn't go that far. No, I'm trying to remember when a famous team did come here. It's a long time ago. It was the university side, if I'm right.
I believe.
A team that I used to play for.
I see. So you yourself, you're more inclined to rugby or cricket?
Look, the reason why the under 85s has been so good to watch is that they play more rugby and less beef. It's more action, it's more happening.
Yes, yes.
You know, you've got 80 minutes, you want 80 minutes of action. And so, well, some of us are looking at rugby and say, please reform yourself to make it the number one thing that you're trying to sell these days is not a hobby, not a pastime. It starts with an E, and a capital E, called entertainment. Get that right, and the crowds will turn up.
And the crowds did turn up in their numbers, yes.
Well, you know, why does the one day in the G20, I mean, why do those things, 20 overs, get people excited? Because it's not like watching paint dry or grass grow, it's action.
Exactly.
It's fantastic.
And when you talk about sports, New Zealand also seems to have a brilliant sporting structure. When you take rugby, for example, all the way from All Blacks to the under 85s, how does having an organized sporting structure, officials who are willing to give it their all to take the team to the next level, how vital is it, that willingness to succeed?
Well, you're asking a very complicated question, because too often administration in sport has people in it not for the sport but for themselves. You want people who are committed servants to the sport. Doesn't matter whether it's women's sport, men's sport. Get rid of nepotism. Sometimes, if I might say it, not accusing anybody doing it here, but I've seen in other countries, get rid of political interference, get the best you possibly can, and then your team will have enormous potential. If you don't, and don't look after the players and then interest in a way that's fair, then it won't go the way it should go.
I see. I have, well, a set of questions that I want to ask the Deputy Prime Minister, unfortunately, because we're pressed for time. We must wrap up. But in your closing remarks, Deputy Prime Minister, what would you have to say to the Sri Lankan people? And what are your closing thoughts on your visit to Sri Lanka? Do you hope to be back sometime again to Sri Lanka?
Let me say that it's been a real privilege and a pleasure, as I said at the beginning, for our team to be here. There's a lot to try and learn in the space of 4 days. Now, you might think that's very brief, but when you're a country like we are, just north of the Penguins, in the southwest Pacific, further away than any other country, I suppose, and on a good day, the world's got 200 countries. It's hard to get around the place. And in those 4 days, though, we've learned a lot, confirmed the local High Commission's views of things, and our staff's long-term view of things. There's 3 people with me who are former ambassadors to, or High Commissioners to Sri Lanka. That's in this team right now, so we've brought a lot of experience with us.
So you have a stellar team by your side.
Well, you know, it's not numbers you want quality.
Definitely.
That's the key. That's the key. But what I would say to the Sri Lankan people, New Zealand is an aspiration for you to see us as a trusted partner, not just based on what we say, but on our long record. And here we are coming out of the difficult economic times after COVID, and when we say that we want a special relationship with Sri Lanka, in this particular occasion, those words are special to us. Those are the facts. Now, but if you ask me privately about coming back, I will come back, hopefully, when I don't have to work and just can cruise around and have a look at the place properly.
Enjoy your beaches
and
mountains.
They kept on saying what I should see, and I knew that's just like teasing somebody.
Yeah.
All right?
Yes. Maybe you can.
Thank you very much.
You can have a private visit at your own leisure. Enjoy our beaches and our mountains and our hospitality. Thank you very much, Right Honourable Dr. Mr. Vincent Peters, Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister of New Zealand, for joining us, sharing your insights and being a part of this valuable dialogue. I'm sure your visit here reaffirms the importance of Sri Lanka and New Zealand relations. We hope to see you here again soon. Until then, we wish you all the success in your future endeavours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and good luck to your people.